always believed my family loved me. I mean, they were my parents, my flesh and blood. I trusted them with everything, especially with my future. My name is Amara, and I was the firstborn daughter in a small, lively town in Nigeria. From as early as I can remember, I was the responsible one. I was the one who helped cook when Mama was tired, fetched water when the tank was empty, and still came home with top grades. I was the one everyone called mature beyond her years, but I was also the one they never really saw. My younger brother, Chuka, on the other hand. Oh, he was the son they all revolved around. Chuka was 2 years younger than me. But you'd think he was a king reincarnated. He was charming, yes, but lazy. He always came home with mediocre grades, constantly blamed his teachers, and never helped out at home, but to Mama and Papa, he was just misunderstood. A boy with big dreams and our future leader. Funny, they said I was too independent to need help. But Chuka got everything handed to him even when he didn't ask. When I turned 16, Kai got accepted into a national science competition and won a scholarship voucher for university. That day, Papa hugged me so tightly I thought I'd finally done something to make him proud. He said, "Amara, your future is bright. This is just the beginning." I believed him, but behind those smiles, behind the claps and praise, something was already being planned. Something I would only discover when it was too late. We weren't rich. My parents owned a small poultry farm, and Mama ran a tailoring business. They'd been saving every naira they could for years. They used to call it the education fund. That fund, I always believed, was meant for me. I had seen the little blue ledger Mama used to record every deposit. I had contributed, even skipping lunch at school just to help them save. But then, Chuka failed his WAEC exams. Twice, he started becoming restless at home, complaining that school wasn't for him. He started talking about going abroad to find himself, to become a man. A cousin in the UK had promised to help him settle if he could just get his tuition together. And then one Sunday afternoon, walked into my parents' room looking for Mama's measuring tape. The drawer was open, and the blue ledger was there. Curiosity led me to flip through the pages. And what I saw shattered me. Education fund cleared. 6,200,000 wired to Chuka's UK school account. My hand trembled. My mouth dried. I stared at it again and again, thinking maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it was an old entry. Maybe they were reimbursed. Maybe, but no. I checked the date. 2 weeks ago. They took everything. Everything I had worked for. Everything I had trusted them to protect. And they never told me. That night, I sat through dinner like a ghost. Chuka was laughing about some new sneakers he ordered online. Mama was joking about how handsome he'd look in a winter jacket. Papa was talking about the exchange rate. Not once did anyone look at me. Not once did they mention my name. I sat there in silence, betrayed, forgotten, invisible. When I finally spoke, my voice was low. "Papa," I said, "what about my university?" He barely looked up. "Amara, you're smart. You'll find a way. Maybe apply for a scholarship. There are options for people like you. People like me, the girl who helped build the very foundation of that fund." I stood up from the table. "I hope he makes you proud," I said, "because you've just destroyed the only person who ever tried to be everything for this family." And I walked away. That night, I didn't cry. I stared at the ceiling and made a decision. If my own parents could betray me, I'd have to build my own way, not for revenge, not even to prove them wrong, but because I knew deep inside that I was born to rise. Even if I had to start from the dirt, I would rise. And when I did, the world would remember my name. I didn't wait for anyone to feel sorry for me. After that night, something in me switched. I stopped seeking approval. I stopped expecting anything from my parents. I knew that if I wanted a future, I had to create it myself. The next morning, I packed away my university admission letter and stored it in a wooden box under my bed. I stared at it one last time and whispered, "Not today, but someday." I started small. I walked around the neighborhood offering tutoring services. Mathematics, chemistry, English, whatever a child needed help with, I was ready. Most of the parents knew me as the genius daughter from the poultry farm. They were happy too. Let me teach their children for a little fee. It wasn't much. Sometimes just $500 per session, but it was mine. It was honest. I'd teach in the mornings and evenings. During the afternoons, I helped Mama at her tailoring shop. Not because I wanted to, but because she still expected me to contribute. And somehow, despite what they did, part of me still hoped they'd realize the pain they caused. They didn't. Instead, they kept praising Chuka every time he called from abroad. He just opened a new Instagram account. Mama would say proudly, "He's adjusting to the cold," Papa added, like it was a measure of success. But Chuka barely called me. The only time he did, he asked for help filling a scholarship application form. No apology. No thank you. Just instructions. I helped him anyway, because that's who I was. But I also knew I couldn't stay in that shadow forever. One day, while buying fabric from the local market, I met her. She was unlike anyone I had seen before. Tall, elegant, wearing a rich blue wrapper with gold embroidery. Her eyes sparkled like someone who had seen the world and survived it. She stood in front of a stall, arguing gently with the seller about the price of lace fabric. When she turned and caught me staring, she smiled. "You have the eyes of someone who wants more," she said. I blinked. I'm just here for fabric." "No, you're here for freedom," she replied. And I know the look. She introduced herself as Madam Jeoma. She owned a chain of fashion stores in Abuja and Lagos. She came to the village every few months to visit her grandmother. That day, I helped her carry her bags to the car, and on the way, I told her my story, not all of it, just enough to hint at the fire burning inside me. She didn't pity me. She didn't scold my parents. She just nodded. "Good," she said. "Pain can either break you or build you. Let's build." She gave me her number, told me to call her every week. And most importantly, she told me to read. Every day from that point, my routine changed. I continued tutoring, but I also started learning about business. I borrowed books on marketing, sales, and product creation. I spent hours at the community library. When they closed early, I stayed up at night reading by candlelight. Then an idea came. Girls in my town struggled with their skin, acne, dryness, rashes. Imported products were expensive. Most local products had harsh chemicals. But I remembered a trick my grandmother used: shea butter mixed with aloe vera and coconut oil. That night, I made a batch. The smell was heavenly. I applied some on my arm. It felt smooth and refreshing. The next day, I carried 4 small jars to my tutoring clients and gave them for free. Within a week, they were asking for more. "I'll pay," one of the mothers said. "Your cream worked like magic." And just like that, my business was born. I called it Amara Glow. With $3,000 I had saved from tutoring, I bought plastic jars, printed simple labels, and began packaging my own skincare line from the back of Mama's tailoring shop without her even knowing. Orders came slow at first, then faster. One of my students' mothers posted about it on Facebook. Then someone shared it on Instagram. In 2 months, I had sold over 120 jars. I reinvested every kobo, and all the while, didn't tell anyone in the house what I was doing. They thought I was just busy with children's lessons. But I was building an empire in silence. My silence wasn't weakness, it was focus. I didn't need revenge. I needed results, and they were coming. Faster than I ever imagined. I knew this was only the beginning, but I was finally stepping into a life I was creating, not one that was handed to me, then stolen. And deep inside, I felt it. This time, they would hear my name, not as their daughter, but as the woman who rose, alone and undefeated. 6 months passed, then a year. By the time my calendar marked 18 months since the day I discovered my college fund was stolen. Amara Glow was no longer a side hustle. It was a growing business. I had expanded from skincare jars to natural soap bars and face masks, and I had loyal customers all over town and even in nearby cities. I partnered with a delivery boy named Hugo, who rode his bike like his life depended on it. Every morning, he'd come to the back of our compound, pick up neatly packed orders, and head off. I paid him weekly and treated him with respect. He became one of my biggest supporters, my profit. Over 400,000 saved in my mobile bank account. I hadn't told anyone, not even Madame Igioma, my mentor, how much I was making. I didn't want advice. I wanted proof. Silent proof that I could do it. Meanwhile, at home, nothing had changed on the surface. Mama still woke me up early to help iron clothes or cut fabric. Papa still barked at me for not greeting him fast enough. But I noticed something else. They had become uneasy. The way they looked at me had shifted. Like they couldn't understand why I still held my head high. Like they expected me to be broken, bitter, silent forever. And then came the calls. First, one from Chuka School in the UK. Mama whispered behind the bedroom door. But I overheard. Tuition issues, she said. No, we already paid. What do you mean he's on academic probation? Papa's voice was louder. Tell them we'll fix it. Tell them he just needs time. But time wasn't enough, 'cause a month later, Chuka called directly. He sounded tired, not arrogant, not playful, just tired. Amara, he said, can you help me apply for a remote internship? I didn't ask questions. I did it. Then he asked me to rewrite his CV. I did that too. Then silence. Until one evening, just as the sky turned orange, I came home from delivering soaps to a boutique and found him. Sitting on the front step, with 2 bags, Chuka had come home. His once fresh haircut was rough. The sneakers he posted online were worn and faded. His face was pale, not because of the cold, but because of reality. He had failed. He didn't finish school. He didn't even tell them he was coming back. Papa was furious. Mama cried, and me stood at the gate, arms crossed, and watched. My brother returned with his tail between his legs, but I didn't feel joy or victory. I felt pity because I knew what it meant to be abandoned by your dreams. Only difference. He was given everything and wasted it. I was given nothing and turned it into gold. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. Was this the beginning of their regret? Would they ever admit what they did to me? The answer came the next morning when I woke up and found Papa sitting in the backyard, staring into the distance. He called my name softly. Amara. I stood still. I know. We made mistakes, he said. We thought we were doing the right thing. Boys have pressure. We didn't think you'd be affected. I stayed silent. He looked up at me with eyes I had never seen before, full of shame. Your mother and I, we're sorry. The words hung in the air. I didn't speak. Not out of anger, but because I had nothing more to prove. Chuka had proven it for me. And then, just as the morning sun rose higher, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hello? I answered. Amara. This is Madame Igioma. Yes, Ma, I replied, straightening my back instinctively. I need you to come to Lagos this weekend. There's someone I want you to meet. It's important, and wear something sharp. You're about to enter a room where real names are made. Froze, my chest tightened. This wasn't just a meeting. This was the scent. This was the opportunity I'd been building for in silence. And I was ready, because the girl they ignored had become the woman they'd never forget. Shall I continue with part 4? It will cover her trip to Lagos, the big reveal about her mentor, and the chance of a lifetime waiting for her. The journey to Lagos felt like a dream. I boarded the night bus alone with just a small suitcase, my best pair of heels, and 5 neatly folded outfits I had sewn myself using leftover fabric from Mama's shop. When we arrived, the city was alive. Horns blaring, street hawkers shouting, skyscrapers standing tall like giants in the sky. I had never seen so many lights, so many people moving with such purpose. Madame Ijeoma sent a car to pick me up from the terminal. The driver was polite and offered me bottled water and soft music. Everything about the ride felt surreal, but nothing prepared me for what I saw when we arrived. Her house wasn't a house, it was a mansion. Glass walls, marble floors, gold lighting, fixtures, and an infinity pool that sparkled like the stars. It was like a palace from a Nollywood film. She met me at the door herself, dressed in a flowing silk robe and gold earrings. "Amara," she smiled, "welcome to the life that you were always meant for." I tried to keep my composure, but inside, my heart was racing. "I brought your favorite," she said, pointing to a tray. Roasted plantain and peppered fish. We sat in the garden. She didn't ask about my business. She already knew. "I've been watching you," she said. I raised my brows. "What do you mean?" She leaned forward. "Every order, every price change, every social media post. I've been tracking your progress from the start." I had one of my assistants pose as a customer to see how you'd handle complaints. "You passed every test." My mouth dropped open. "You tested me." "I invested my time in you, Amara. I needed to know if you were just hurt and hungry, or if you were resilient and ready." I was speechless. She stood up and walked me toward a private studio inside her house with mannequins, design tables, racks of clothes, skincare samples, mood boards, and business blueprints. "Here's the truth," she said. "I'm retiring, and I'm looking for someone to take over one of my businesses. It could be you, but only if you can present a solid business pitch to my board this Sunday." My heart skipped. "You want me to?" "Pitch. 2 real investors. Real clients. If they approve, you'll get 10 million in seed capital. Office space, mentorship, and a platform that can change your life forever." I stood frozen. She put a hand on my shoulder. "You don't owe your parents revenge. You owe yourself success. Go prove you deserve it." The next 3 days were a blur. I worked around the clock on my pitch. I pulled data from my real sales, calculated margins, and designed packaging prototypes for Amara Glow 2.0. I practiced in front of mirrors, strangers, and even Madame Ijeoma's cook, who clapped when I finished. Sunday came. I wore my best blazer, navy blue with gold buttons. My hair was braided in a crown. I stood in front of 5 board members, 3 women and 2 men, all dressed in power suits. I breathed in and began. "Good morning. My name is Amara Ez. I'm here not just to sell skincare, but to sell strength, the kind that grows in silence and blossoms in pain." I spoke for 15 minutes, then waited. Silence. One of the men tapped his pen. "Who taught you how to pitch?" "No one," I replied. "Life did." They nodded, and then the woman in the middle smiled. "You're fearless." And that's what business needs. "Congratulations, Miss Ez. You've just earned your first investment." I wanted to scream, to dance, to cry, but I smiled politely and said, "Thank you. I won't let you down." That evening, Madame Ijeoma hugged me tight. "You're no longer a student," she said. "You're a builder now." I returned home the following week. Chuka was Still around, jobless and moody. My parents were quiet, unsure of what to say, so I broke the silence. "I'm moving to Lagos," I said. "I've been offered a business grant and office space. I'll be running my skincare company from there." They stared at me. Mama's lips trembled. "We're proud of you." I didn't respond with words. I just smiled. Because finally, after years of being unseen, I had become undeniable. 3 months after I moved to Lagos, everything changed. Amara Glow wasn't just a local skincare brand anymore. It became a symbol, a story, a movement. Women across the country began tagging our products with hashtags like #GlowWithPurpose and #FromPain to Power. I hired a small team, 3 women who, like me, had been overlooked, underestimated, and cast aside. We worked from a bright studio office on the island, filled with plants, sunlight, and the scent of fresh shea butter. I no longer made the products with my hands. I now led product development, marketing strategy, and investor meetings. My story, the one I kept hidden for so long, had become my superpower. Magazines wrote about me. Influencers asked to collaborate. Orders came from Ghana, Kenya, South Africa. One of our reels hit over 2 million views. But the biggest shift wasn't in the business, it was in me. I had stepped fully into my power, and there was no turning back. One evening, as the sun dipped over the Lekki skyline, I stood on a rooftop. Preparing for the biggest moment of my life, I had been invited to give a keynote speech at the Women Rising Africa Conference, an annual event for young female entrepreneurs. I wore a deep green jumpsuit tailored to perfection. My hair was pulled into a sleek puff. As I stood at the podium, a spotlight hit my face, and 100 eyes looked up at me, waiting. I took a deep breath, and I began. My name is Amara Ez. I come from a small town where my dreams were once handed to someone else. I was told to wait, to sacrifice, to be silent. And when I finally spoke, no one listened. So I decided to stop asking for permission and started building without applause. Today, stand before you, not because I had support, but because I had vision. I didn't grow up with luxury. I grew up with resilience, and it is that fire, that hunger that built Amara Glow. To every young woman here who feels invisible, forgotten, or left behind, remember this: they can take your money, they can take your seat, but they can never take your mind. Build anyway, rise anyway, win even if you have to do it alone. When I finished, the room exploded in applause. People stood, they clapped, they cried. And I knew, in that moment, I wasn't just telling my story, I was telling their story. Later that night, as I sat in my hotel room, I received a text message from my father. "I watched your speech. You have become more than we ever imagined. I am proud of you. I am sorry." Then one from my mother. "Forgive us. We didn't know who you were becoming. We do now." And finally, from Chuka, "I wish I had your strength. Teach me." I didn't reply immediately, not because I was bitter, but because I wanted to reply with actions, not just words. A week later, I opened a new foundation, the Amara Initiative. Its mission to sponsor underprivileged girls whose dreams were sacrificed for their brothers, and the first person I hired to manage logistics, my brother Chuka, because growth isn't just about becoming powerful. It's about becoming wise enough to lift others, even those who once stood in your way. And so, the girl who was robbed of her future created a new one, one bigger, brighter, and more beautiful than anyone imagined. She didn't just survive the betrayal, she turned it into a brand, a business, a breakthrough. And when history remembers my name, it won't be as the forgotten child, it will be as the girl who turned loss into legacy. My name is Amara Ez, and they didn't break me. They built me. Thank you so much for watching this powerful African life lesson story. If Amara's journey touched your heart, inspired you, or reminded you that strength comes from within, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Everyone has a story. Some are silenced, some are stolen, but the strongest ones are the ones we rebuild ourselves. Drop a comment below and let us know. Have you ever been overlooked, underestimated, or betrayed and still rose above it? We'll be back with more inspiring African tales that heal, teach, and empower. Until next time, keep rising, keep glowing, keep believing.